Good afternoon, friends. Today we'll be discussing two topics as part of your revision. One is prostaglandins and the other is lipoproteins. Now, an important question which has come in the university exam is the functional and therapeutic role of prostaglandins. Now, as you all know, prostaglandins are collectively known as the eicosanoids. And these eicosanoids can go through two pathways. One is the cyclooxygenase pathway, which gives rise to the prostaglandins and prostacyclins and the thromboxanes, and the lipooxygenase pathway, which gives rise to leukotrienes and lipoxygens. Now, before we go to the function, I just wanted to tell you that it is good for you to just go through the synthesis of prostaglandins also. Okay? That prostaglandins are not stored, but their precursor fatty acids are stored in the membrane as phospholipids. Now, the arachidonic acid from the phospholipids are then released with the help of the enzyme phospholipase A2. Now, there are certain activators for this process. They are epinephrine, bradykinin, vasopressin, and angiotensin II. The oxidative cyclization of free arachidonic acid gives rise to PGG2 by prostaglandin endoperoxidase synthase, and this enzyme has two catalytic activity. So this pathway of synthesis of prostaglandin is important. Here in this pathway you can see how from the membrane phospholipids arachidonic acid is released, and this is with the help of the enzyme phospholipase A2 and stimulated by a whole lot of hormones and other factors like hormones like epinephrine, vasopressin, and also angiotensin, bradykinin, thrombin, etc. And other conditions also like trauma and hypoxia can also release the arachidonic acid from the membrane-bound phospholipids with the help of the enzyme phospholipase A2. Arachidonic acid then undergoes cyclization to form PGG2, and this is with the help of an enzyme which has two activities, the cyclooxygenase activity and the peroxidase activity. This converts it into PGG2 and PGH2. So PGH2 is a very important intermediate. From PGH2 you can get the prostacyclins, that is PGI2, PGD2 and PGI2, and the prostaglandins PGD2, PGE2, PGF2 alpha, and the thromboxanes. The inhibitors are very important of cyclooxygenase. They include the glucocorticoids, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, aspirin, indomethacin, and ibuprofen. So as I told you, the endoperoxide synthase has got two catalytic activities. One is the cyclooxygenase activity and the other is peroxidase activity. With the help of these two enzymes, the arachidonic acid is converted to PGG2 and then to PGH2. And as I told you, PGH2 is a precursor of prostaglandins, prostacyclins, and thromboxane, and this pathway is known as the cyclic pathway or the cyclooxygenase pathway. So it's good to know this. Now coming to the question which was asked in the university exam, this is just the same pathway which I had explained to you earlier. You can go through it. Now coming to the functions of prostaglandins. Now prostaglandins are, when you talk about the functions, you have to mention which prostaglandin is being effective in which function. For example, when you talk of regulation of blood pressure, PGE2 decreases, so you have to mention the particular prostaglandin. PGE2 decreases blood pressure and causes vasodilation. PGF2 alpha increases the blood pressure and causes vasoconstriction. The second function of prostaglandin is to cause inflammation. So both PGD2 and PGE2 induces the inflammatory symptoms, that is, it causes redness, swelling, edema, and this is due to arterial vasodilatation. The PGs are natural mediators of inflammatory reactions and play a very important role in causing rheumatoid arthritis in the joints. In skin, it causes psoriasis and affects the eye, causing conjunctivitis. Third important role of the prostaglandins is in reproduction, that is PGF2 alpha. It enhances uterine contraction. It is able to induce labor. It also arrests hemorrhage during delivery. But medical termination of labor can also be carried out by the prostaglandins when it is given in larger amounts. That is medical termination of unwanted pregnancies. They have used this drug. Fourth, its role or function in pain and fever. So pyrogens are fever producing agents. They promote the synthesis of prostaglandins. This leads to the formation of PGE2 in the hypothalamus, and this is the site of regulation of temperature. So PGE2 along with histamine and bradykinin can cause pain and can elevate the body temperature. Migraine is also caused by PGE2, and to inhibit this we can use drugs like aspirin to inhibit the PG synthesis and relieve pain and fever. Fifth function, it regulates gastric function, that is, inhibits gastric secretion, enhances mucin secretion, and is used in the treatment of gastric ulcers and increases the motility of the intestine. It also stimulates pancreatic secretions. Sixth point, it decreases immune function. PGE2 decreases immune function. Seventh role, it is in respiratory function. PGE2 is a bronchodilator, whereas PGF2 alpha is a constrictor of smooth muscles. So they have an opposing action, and PGE2 is used in the treatment of asthma. It has a role in renal function, that is, it increases glomerular filtration rate, increases urine output and blood flow, increases the absorption of sodium, potassium and chloride in renal tubules. Now the other functions are, it can increase lipolysis and it can increase glycogenesis. So you have to remember these 9 points, and wherever possible you should be able to specifically write which prostaglandin plays a role in carrying out that particular function. And if it is being therapeutically used, then that can also be kept in mind and if asked in the university exam. Now this is also a good thing for you to remember. What is the difference between prostacyclin and thromboxane? Now prostacyclins are produced, I told you, by the same pathway. That is the arachidonic acid giving rise to PGG2, then PGH2. PGH2 being the important intermediate which gives rise to prostacyclins, other prostaglandins and thromboxane. So it is formed by the cyclooxygenase pathway. So prostacyclin is produced by the endothelium of the vessels. It inhibits platelet aggregation. So it prevents adherence of the platelets to the blood vessels. It's a vasodilator and it increases the levels of cyclic AMP. Thromboxane, on the other hand, is produced by the platelets, and it has an opposite effect, that is, it promotes platelet aggregation. It is released by the blood vessels and causes spontaneous aggregation. It is a vasoconstrictor, unlike prostacyclins, and it decreases the level of cyclic AMP. So this table will briefly give you the functions of each prostaglandin. Like PGE2, it takes part in an inflammatory reaction and causes vasodilatation. PGF2 alpha causes vasoconstriction. PGI2, it causes vasodilatation, inhibition of platelet aggregation. Thromboxanes, it causes platelet aggregation and vasoconstriction. The leukotrienes, it causes bronchoconstriction and vasoconstriction. And lipoxins, they cause bronchoconstriction and vasodilatations. The next part is on lipoproteins. So very often you get the question, classify lipoproteins, mention the functions of each class. or describe the role of lipoproteins in cholesterol transport. Then the question has come on reverse cholesterol transport. And a fourth question, which phospholipoprotein is inversely correlated with coronary artery disease? Classification of lipoproteins can be done through two laboratory techniques, that is based on their density and based on the electrophoretic mobility. Now, density decreases as the proportion of lipid to protein increases, and this principle is used in ultracentrifugation. So, way back in 1954, Goffman et al., they were able to separate lipoproteins by ultracentrifugation into 5 major density classes. One is the chylomicrons, the very low density lipoproteins, the intermediate density lipoproteins, the low density lipoproteins, and the high density lipoproteins. Now, in 1967, Fredrickson and co-workers, they were able to classify the lipoproteins based on their electrophoretic mobility, a technique which is widely used and very simple to carry out. The most frequently used media for electrophoretic techniques are paper and agarose. So, on the basis of electrophoretic mobility, they were able to separate the lipoproteins into chylomicrons, LDL, which was known as the beta lipoprotein, VLDL, which was called the pre-beta lipoprotein, and HDL, which was called as the alpha lipoprotein. So, you can see that the HDL is the fastest moving, whereas chylomicrons are seen close, almost on the origin. The next comes LDL, then VLDL, and then the fastest moving is HDL. Now, what are the functions? So, one is the classification. I told you classification based on two methods. One is density and the other is electrophoretic mobility. Second is the function. So, let's look at each of these lipoproteins. Chylomicrons. Please remember, it transports triglycerides from the intestine to the liver. So, it is a carrier of exogenous, that is mainly dietary triglycerides. VLDL. It transports endogenous triglyceride, that is, it is synthesized in the hepatic cell, to extrahepatic like adipose tissue for storage. So, these two are transporting triacylglyceride or triglycerides. Now, let's look at low density lipoprotein. Low density lipoprotein is very rich in cholesterol and cholesterol esters, and its role is to transport it from the liver to the tissues. That's why it is known as the bad cholesterol. It is transporting cholesterol from the liver to the tissues and it gets stored there. Okay. Now, lastly we have HDL. It is transporting cholesterol from tissues to the liver. So, it has a scavenging action. That is, it's picking up the cholesterol from the tissues and taking it back to the liver, where it will get completely metabolized. So, that is why it is known as the good cholesterol. So, these are the, in brief, the different functions of the lipoproteins. Now, you were asked a question on what is reverse cholesterol transport. It's a selective transfer of cholesterol from the peripheral cells or peripheral tissues to HDL and from HDL to the liver. Once it's taken to the liver, what is the fate of this cholesterol? It is major part of cholesterol will be converted to bile acids, or it can be used for steroid hormone synthesis. So, this forms the basis of cholesterol homeostasis, or the basis of an inverse relationship between plasma HDL concentration and atherosclerosis. So, there is an inverse. So, which lipoprotein has an inverse relationship with coronary artery disease or atherosclerosis is the HDL, plasma HDL. And this is why HDL is designated as the good cholesterol carrier. So, when you are asked about the lipoproteins which are involved in cholesterol transport, the two important lipoproteins are LDL and HDL. LDL, as you know, is synthesized from VLDL. So, with this figure, it is nice if we could explain the synthesis of LDL from VLDL. it's converted to intermediate density lipoprotein, and finally to LDL, which is cholesterol and cholesterol ester rich, which then transports the cholesterol through the extrahepatic tissues. We should also talk about how the LDL enters through the receptors into the cell. So the specific receptors, that is the B100 apoproteins of LDL, bind to specific receptors. Where do you find these LDL receptors? They are found on depressed coated pit regions. So you can see it in the figure. The depressed coated pit regions contain the receptors for LDL. This is present on the surface of cells or peripheral tissues. So the LDL particles will get concentrated in these coated pit regions which contain their receptor, and then it is invaginated into the cytoplasm and is pinched off as a coated vesicle. The LDL rich vesicle then fuse with the cytoplasm. Now the acid proteases then hydrolyze the ApoB and convert it into amino acids, and the cholesterol from LDL is released, and cholesterol esterases then convert the cholesterol esters of LDL to cholesterol and fatty acid. In this way, LDL delivers cholesterol to the extrahepatic tissues, where it is stored as cholesterol or cholesterol esters. The remaining LDL will go back to the liver, where it is converted to, where the cholesterol is converted to bile acids. So the figure is important, and also the binding of the LDL to specific receptors. And these receptors, remember, the B100 apoproteins of LDL. They are the ones which are recognized by the receptor and binds the LDL, and they are all concentrated in this depressed coated pit regions. So this is how LDL takes the cholesterol to the extrahepatic tissues. Now another lipoprotein which is involved in transport of cholesterol is the HDL. But HDL is a good cholesterol. It is picking up the cholesterol from the extrahepatic tissues and taking it to the liver. Briefly about its synthesis, that it is synthesized in the liver or the intestinal mucosal cells, and you go on to give the through the figure. Okay. So what you should remember is that the nascent HDL, whether it is formed from the intestine or in the liver, are disc-shaped particles containing primarily phospholipids ApoA, C and E. They take up cholesterol from extrahepatic or peripheral tissues and return it to the liver as cholesterol esters. Now the cholesterol which is taken by HDL is immediately esterified, and this is done by the enzyme LCAT, lecithin cholesterol acyl transferase, which binds to nascent HDL, and this is activated by the apoprotein ApoA1. LCAT then transfers the fatty acid from the C2 of phosphatidylcholine or lecithin to cholesterol. So it produces a hydrophobic cholesterol esters, which is then concentrated or sequestered in the core of the HDL molecule. Now what is released is the lysophosphatidylcholine, because it has lost one of its fatty acids, and this lysophosphatidylcholine gets bound to albumin and gets released. As more and more cholesterol is concentrated as cholesterol esters in the core of HDL, the shape of HDL then changes from a discoidal shape to a spherical HDL. So this figure, you have to give this figure because this helps you to explain how the cholesterol is picked up. So you can see it can be synthesized either from the liver or in the small intestine. As it comes out, the nascent HDL contains ApoA1, ApoAE and ApoC, and it is discoidal in shape. But as it picks up the cholesterol from the peripheral tissues, and this is helped by the ABCA1 transport protein. This is a ATP binding cassette protein. What happens? The cholesterol which is picked up by HDL gets converted to cholesterol esters, and this is done by the phosphatidylcholine or the lecithin, which donates a fatty acid to the cholesterol, esterifying it, and itself getting converted to lysophosphatidylcholine. Okay, this is done by the enzyme PCAT or LCAT, lecithin cholesterol acyl transferase. Now, as more and more cholesterol gets concentrated in the inner core of HDL, the shape changes from the original discoid shape. It has become spherical in shape. Okay, and as more and more cholesterol gets picked up, what happens? This gets larger in size. So HDL3 then becomes converted to HDL2. Okay, now the HDL2 then finally reaches the liver, and it is then recognized, the receptors on HDL are recognized by the liver, and it is internalized into the liver. Okay, once it is this cholesterol esters or cholesterol gets internalized into the liver, it is then converted into bile acids, and a small portion may be converted into steroid hormones. So the cholesterol esters within HDL may be transferred to other lipoproteins in exchange for triacylglycerol, and the exchange is effected by a cholesterol transfer protein. Now the particle size of HDL3 is converted to a larger HDL2, cholesterol ester rich molecule, as I told you through the figure. Then the heparin releasable hepatic lipase then hydrolyzes the surface lipids of HDL2 particles reaching the liver. The HDL2 binds to a receptor on the liver surface, and there is increased hepatic intake of cholesterol esters into the liver. Okay, the cholesterol then gets completely converted to bile acids and small portion to steroid hormones. Okay, the lipid depleted ApoA rich HDL particles now return to the plasma. So this explains how HDL picks up the cholesterol from extrahepatic tissue and transports it to the liver. So we find two lipoproteins, the bad lipoprotein LDL carrying the cholesterol from the liver to the extrahepatic tissue, and HDL, which is the good lipoprotein or the good cholesterol, carrying it cholesterol from extrahepatic tissue to the liver. So this completes the topic on both prostaglandins and lipoproteins.